How many folks do we have online?
3, sir.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming to the press conference. As you know, this is the first day of the special session. A special session that was moved from the beginning of August to the state at the request of the legislature to give them more time to work on the permanent fund issue and the permanent fund dividend. And so we worked with the legislature, we moved it to the state, and that working group has been working for some time on this issue. So we're looking forward to seeing what the working group has come up with. Hopefully they've come up with a number of different options that will solve this issue. As you remember, my position on the permanent fund goes back years. This particular year, we put in a number of bills to make sure that the permanent fund is permanent, so that the permanent fund dividend, we don't have to go back and visit this every year. What we really want to get taken care of here is a sustainable fiscal plan that goes well into the future. This will allow us to tackle some of the other issues that we've been unable to tackle because we've been focused on trying to deal with the permanent fund and our fiscals. If you remember back in the spring, we divided the special session out. We announced this special session months ago so that we could deal first in the spring, late spring, with the permanent fund dividend and the permanent fund, the permanency of the permanent fund with the ERA going to the Constitution and a POMV. We, legislature at that point was unable to come up with a solution. So now we had to roll that part of the sustainable fiscal plan into this part, which was really supposed to be about the legislature's discussions on any potential revenues that they want to look at, and things like a spending limit, constitutional spending limit, that we want to make sure that is in place to protect the people of Alaska. And so we know what we have to do. We have all of the solutions. We know it's mechanically, we have a lot to choose from to be able to solve this issue. The question is there going to be the political will? And the question is there going to be enough people to come around or coalesce around a solution? I think everybody wants a solution. Everybody wants to put this to bed. We want to start talking about whether it's improving our educational outcomes, continue to work on our public safety issues, things that most states work on that have a fiscal approach in place for many, many years. And so, again, looking forward to what the working group has come up with. Hopefully we'll know today, tomorrow at the latest. And the bottom line is that we've been rolling out possible solutions for months and months and months now. Again, it's not necessarily a mechanical issue. It's really a political issue that folks have to coalesce around some solutions. And the people of Alaska expect us in Juneau to get this issue solved. So that's why we're here, started a special session, and that's what our hopes are, and we're ready to work with the legislature and get things done. So, Jeff?
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with questions on the teleconference line. We'll take our first question from Anthony Moore at KSRM Radio in Kenai. Anthony?
Thank you, Jeff. Governor, got a question for you. If the legislature adopts a 50-50 plan by statute only, but rejects a constitutional amendment, do you accept it or do you veto it?
That's an interesting question. Again, what happens is we then have a statutory change without the protection of the Constitution. And without those constitutional protections, it's really still filled with some uncertainty going forward. The idea, again, of the constitutional amendment is to give it permanency so that we don't have to revisit this. So my preference would be a constitutional amendment. Again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I've been pretty consistent on that in order to make sure that we don't have to revisit this again.
Okay. Let's take a question from Jeff Landfield. Jeff, do you have a question for the governor? Okay, if Jeff jumps on, we'll come back to him later. Margie Bauman, Cordova Times. Margie?
Yeah, I have no question at this time. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Margie. Let's go ahead and start here in the room. Sean McGuire, Alaska's News Source.
Hi, Governor. I was struck when you announced your 50-50 plan earlier this year that you had a lot of legislators around you. You seem to all be together supporting this idea. I'm curious if, to get new revenues passed, whether you would need a similar effort where you come behind one idea or two ideas and invite legislators in, essentially giving them political cover and showing them you support one idea in particular.
Yeah. So, Sean, I don't necessarily think we need new revenues. What we were asked to do is to ponder some possibilities for the legislature to look at. So we did a lot of the footwork for them in identifying potential revenues for them to either coalesce around or reject. I want to show you just a very simple graph. So what you have here, and this is why I'm going to Sean's question, what you have here is the permanent fund balance on June 30th, 2020. It was $65,302,000. Today, on August 13th, 2021, it stands at $82,458. It just keeps going up. Now, we know that's not always going to happen, and history will show that it doesn't always happen. But without a doubt, this is a phenomenal increase in the fund. And why do I say that? Am I saying that this is something we should spend? No. But the solution in which we won't have to tax businesses, we won't have to take the entire PFD from people, and government gets the take that they need, is contained within this concept of a bridge fund, in which you take, this is it, the yellow, you take this yellow part, the $3 billion, and you spread it across the next several years to bridge us to when the permanent fund is anticipated through the POMV process to be able to meet our necessary revenues for government. Now, this doesn't mean, really the issue is, this doesn't mean you can keep spending at entirely accelerated rates. You can't do that. As a matter of fact, we're going to continue to look for efficiencies and reductions. We think we need to do that as well. But in Alaska's time of need, which is last year and this year, in which people were having a difficult time maybe paying their mortgages, paying their bills, going to work, looking for daycare, etc. I was up in Fairbanks yesterday, and I was getting on the plane, and a senior turned to me and said, "Governor Dunleavy, can you help us?" I said, what is the issue? Our heating costs are going through the roof. Well, we heat with diesel up here in Fairbanks, and we're having a tough time. I didn't want to say to that person at that moment that we have a solution. That's always been the permanent fund that could help people. But again, if you look at the graph, and if you take the $3 billion out, in our time of need, this is really a windfall. You know, in the past, some have said, well, why do we want to spend our seed corn? Your seed corn is kind of the corpus, the royalties that we've had in there. You certainly don't want to touch that, and you can't, thank God. But in our time of need, when we're getting hit with the worst pandemic probably in Alaska's history, the world in some time, I should say, in the last 100 years, and you've had such great returns, why not use it so that we don't harm any sector of Alaska, so that we don't harm government, so that we don't harm businesses that are struggling, and so that we don't harm the people of Alaska that are struggling. I've been out to rural Alaska a couple weeks ago. I'll be going out again. And what's interesting is there's one common theme amongst Alaskans, whether they're urban or rural, doesn't matter what town they live in, and that is they all understand the permanent fund and the permanent fund dividend, and they really understand how it impacts their lives. There's a number of legislators, well-meaning legislators, that believe if they take the permanent fund dividend and bring it into government, they can make programs, better programs than the people themselves could make to use that money on. The individual I bumped in at the airport up in Fairbanks illustrated why you can't do that, because there's a multitude of issues that individuals deal with on a daily basis. And that's why cash is really the ultimate program. And cash in the form of the permanent fund dividend that's been around for several decades is really the answer to a lot of these issues that people have. It's also going to help the private economy in Alaska. For example, in the Mat-Su alone, I'm just using that area with 100,000 people. If you came up with a 50-50 around the amount that we're talking about, the amount of money available just in that region is millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that will probably be used to repair cars, pay for fuel oil, take care of medical and dental issues. The list goes on. And so really, our philosophy has always been, Alaskans, individual Alaskans, know what's best and know what their needs are. So the idea that we'll take the permanent fund into government, change it around in various programs, and then give it back to Alaskans flies in the face of the fact that Alaskans have individual issues that they deal with on their own. And so we believe that by taking a small portion of the windfall, and that's what this is. This was totally unanticipated. I don't think you'll find anyone that says we were going to see a fund like the Permafund increase this dramatically in 1 year. You take a piece of the windfall and you spread it across a few years, and you're able to smooth this out, and we can get through this without any large statewide taxes, or people are talking about income taxes, even sales taxes. You don't need that. But it's really going to be what the legislature comes around, what they coalesce around. But I would say this: if this fund was still at about $65 billion, I think there'd be more of a case. But at 82 plus, in Alaska's time of need, like we haven't seen in decades of forever, and all the needs that the people have, all the needs that businesses have, all the needs that government has, the solution is contained right here. That was a long-winded answer to your question, Sean, but anyway, thank you.
Peter Siegel, Journal Empire.
Thank you, Governor. If the legislature is not able to coalesce around a solution and not coalesce around the project,
Then we got a problem. I'm sorry, but go ahead, Peter.
are you prepared to call yet another special session this year to call them back in to have them continue their work?
If we don't call them back in, then how does this get solved? I mean, I would hope that they could call themselves back in. I would have hoped that this would have been solved months, if not years ago. But if we don't do that, then we don't have a permanent fund dividend. We don't have solutions to the fiscal issue going forward. So what we end up doing is continuing to have uncertainty and, to some extent, chaos. Chaos meaning, what are we going to do here in a couple months? What are we going to do in a year? This is problematic, and it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen. This is not a mechanical issue. This working group that was put together has been working for weeks now, talking about these issues. And again, I look forward to seeing what they've come up with. This is really a political issue. And everybody's going to have to take a step in. We've taken a step in. The caucus is going to have to take a step in to get a solution. This is how government runs. This is how it was put together. So, Peter, I would say that I'm not planning on a special session because I'm hoping that everything gets done here over the next 30 days.
KTOO.
Thank you, Joe. Governor, when you ran 3 years ago, you did not run on cutting state funding for education by a quarter or transferring more than $400 million from local governments, including the North Slope Borough, in oil property taxes. But you did propose it after the oil price fell and there were other things going on. Can you assure Alaskans that they won't see similar proposed changes in your second term if you're reelected?
Well, I have no intention of radically redesigning government. So when we were running our campaign, I think it was October 10th of that year, oil was at $85 a barrel. And the projections were that oil was going to either maintain or go up. And when we looked at the revenue produced at $85 a barrel, we were in pretty good shape. We got into office and it had dropped dramatically. We made adjustments. We had, I think, a very robust conversations with Alaskans about that. And so here we are today, and we're not even talking about what occurred this past year where oil was below $2 negative per barrel. You can't always predict the future. And again, as part of our solutions looking forward in our sustainable budgets, I'm looking at contemplating any and all measures that ensure certainty, not just for government, but for businesses, the economy, and people. And so if your question is, do I have intentions of slashing and burning, as somebody told me a couple of months ago that's their concern, of course not. I don't think it's good for Alaska. Will we continue to look for efficiencies and reductions where we can? Absolutely. I think that's my responsibility to do that.
James Brooks, Anchorage Daily News.
Governor, if the legislature doesn't agree with the idea of a bridge fund, what's the alternative?
That's a good question. We need to ask them. We've given them plenty of options, plenty of suggestions, plenty of tools to work with. They've got to come forward. And I think part of the discussion that's not really happening is they're struggling themselves to come around, to coalesce around things. And I get that. But they're going to have to come forward. They are the appropriators. They are the lawmakers. In the end, no solution happens without them. My job is to implement the laws. My job is to come up with suggested budget approaches, given what Alaska's needs are. But, James, they're going to have to come around something. And here's the deal. They're going to come around something sooner or later. Sooner is better for all of us right now, to be honest with you. later is going to continue the chaos. But they're going to have to come up with something.
Last question, next one. AP?
Hi, Governor. You said earlier that we were asked to ponder revenues, and the Revenue Commissioner had recently told the working group that we are positioned and prepared to introduce bills for most of those items on the list that she showed that she said you would support if the legislature supported. So if the caucuses came to you and said, we'd love to see what you have in the way of oil taxes or sales tax, are you guys do you have something ready, or what are you gonna?
We are prepared to talk about any and all solutions, but any and all solutions must include, to get to a sustainable fiscal plan, must include constitutional safeguards for the people of Alaska. So spending limits need to be contemplated. Permanent fund constitutional amendment needs to be contemplated. We believe if we deal with those things first and we put those sideboards in, then we can have discussions about other approaches. We don't think we need these statewide revenues that some are talking about, but we have looked at everything in an effort to assist the legislature on understanding what's available. So do I have an interest in taxing? I don't have an interest in taxing. I don't think we need to. But if the legislature is looking at taxation, we've run through a bunch of models that they can take a look at, but they're going to have to decide if that's what they want to do. But again, if it comes to my desk without an appropriation limit, a constitutional appropriation limit, I don't see how it's going to work. Oh, we got a, okay. Go ahead.
Could I ask quickly about the dividend? I've heard some frustration that it's not on the agenda. Could you just explain, is that going to get added and when?
Yeah, we are looking at a potential spending bill. We have to do that for the dividend. So that question, we'll have clarity on that here later on this afternoon. We're talking with some folks, but in order to get a dividend, we need to have a spending bill. So with that, here we are again. Some would say this is like Groundhog Day. Same faces, same people, same place, same issue. That's why I say it's a political issue. It's not a mechanical issue. It would be a mechanical issue if this is what we had in 2020 and this is what we ended up here with 2021. Then you can start to say that it becomes more of a mechanical issue. But we have all the tools available to us. All the tools available to us if we just put it together, coalesce around some tools. I've always been adamant, whether I was a senator, before I was even elected in office, and now as a governor, that really we have to protect the people of Alaska. Now, people will say, does that mean you think that government is the enemy? No, I don't think government's the enemy. But anyone that's been around government knows it will continue to grow and grow and grow unless unchecked. We don't have to look any further than what happened to the CBR. And we're all part of the problem, but we're all part of the solution if we want to get around this. So we moved the special session call to the 16th so the working group could do its work. It would be interesting to see what the working group has in terms of solutions. I think a lot of folks are starting to run out of patience with regard to our ability here in Juneau to get some solutions, but we need to do that. We need to do that. We need to solve this once and for all. We need to have a sustainable fiscal plan so we can get on and deal with other issues that face Alaska today. And of course, I'm going to continue to be the optimist, but we have the tools to solve this. Let's solve this. So I want to thank you folks, and I'm sure we will have more press conferences. Thank you.